Well, good evening and welcome to Yada Yahweh Radio. Happy Shabbat to one and all. We're here with Kirk. And Kirk, it's you were sharing with me the situation that you're in, and I'm really sorry for you and Terry. It's really been quite an ordeal. 120 days now. Yeah, so 4 months of this, and you're in. Well, she's weaker than she was when you arrived there. All that time ago. So it's frustrating when somebody is subjected to the medical processes here now in our country, the way that they're structured, and that after 120 days of being under their care, she's worse off than she was when she arrived by a long shot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close.
I don't want to frighten her. She's probably listening, but she knows she's very weak, and it's just your body can't take this constant assault of stuff. So that's the way it is.
Oh, we're not frightening her. She is an extreme. I mean, we've spent time together. Terry is an extremely strong, confident woman who has lived a wonderful life, has been part of a wonderful marriage, as part of the covenant family, and no one's going to frighten Terry, and that certainly wasn't my intent. It was really just my intent to acknowledge that she went into the hospital 120 days ago and they have not done well by her.
No, sir.
And I understand that they've got another one more major surgery where they're going to try to make it all better, and we're hopeful that they prevail and they make it all better. I was
absolutely.
You even told me that your poor dog had to have an autopsy and surgery. And you won't know for. I'm sorry for laughing, but what are you going to do, Kurt?
For the biopsy, not an autopsy. But in fact, I'm sitting here. If I have to leave the phone for a few minutes, it's because he's sitting here with his stitches. I just picked him up about an hour ago, and he's not allowed to lick his little stitches because they'll send the thing out to be biopsied, and hopefully it'll come back benign, and we won't have to worry too much about him. But poor little guy, he's wobbly legged and sitting here next to me, and it's been quite a day.
Quite a day, and on top of that, you've got the virus. It's not CV-19, but you've got a virus.
I've got what they call the COLD virus. It's it's annoying. It's as annoying as hell, but it's no less. It's a cold. Ain't no question about that. So I'm trying to get well enough so that I'm not.
Speaking of annoying, would you be willing to share what the lovely ladies had to say to you today? Or would you prefer just to bypass that?
No. I think it was extraordinary. I had never. I've been talking about Yahowah for 11, 12 years now, or whatever it's been, and I've talked to every male, female, young, old, teenagers, everything, and shared it openly, and never had anyone really.
And speaking of Yahowah, where'd you find his name?
I'm sorry, where did I find his name?
When you're speaking of Yahowah, was there any place does his name appear in any place in particular that might be of interest to a religious person like a Christian that is going to?
You would think. You would think that because it's all through 7,000 times, as we know. You can look it up in your Strong's Christian-oriented lexicon. It's Yahowah is there 7,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah, 7,000 times in the book. They claim it's inspired by God. His name is there 7,000 times. But if you mention it, oh my God, you're going to hell, right?
Well, this is the thing that set this particular person off. Well, she came in and she walked up to the gate, rang the bell, and I let her in, and we came to the front door, and they're friends and been very nice to us. And walked in the door, and she commenced to tell me that she had been compelled by the Holy Ghost to tell me about Jesus Christ. And I said, well, for 25 years, I probably studied it more than any Christian I've ever met. I really, really know this stuff. So I know your positions on everything, and this is why I don't buy it. And I started with the name, and I started with, how many times it's written and how. And I also I happened to mention that he wrote his name, and he wrote a message in stone on the first tablet where he told everybody, I will not forgive you for changing my name, diminishing my name. And by the way, his son came in his name. And his name is not Jesus. There is no one named Jesus. That's an invention 400 years ago. And this rebuttal that I was going, and I said, and by the way, his name is Yahowah, which means Yahweh saves. Is Yah doing the saving through this vehicle called Yahowah. And that was like water on a duck's back, man. And just, I don't care what you say. These are not important. I have known Jesus Christ, the Lord Jesus Christ, for 50 years, and I have a personal relation with him. And I say, well, you may very well have with this person, but you don't have it with Yahweh.
And that's the only one that matters.
Has one, and that's the only. Well, I was tempered most of the things with, before she struck me, or tried, before she might be tempted to strike me. And I said, and I'll agree with you to disagree. You can pursue whatever path you want because we have a thing called free will. Yahweh gave you free will. There are no commandments, and that's not law. And then we went about the Torah being law and into the commandments. And I'm saying, first of all, there are no commandments. These are advice from your Father, giving you good advice on how to live and how to return home to him and be part of his family. That's the essence of the Torah. He has terms and conditions. He gave them to Abraham, and he said, then he used a word called olam, which means forever. This will always be the case, and there's even a opportunity for you to join the covenant family regardless of whether you're Yehudim or Yisrael or one of the tribes. And but that didn't fly at all because she knows how to get to heaven because Jesus died for their sins. And then I said, well, he was Torah observant, and he observed these things, and all the apostles after the ones that you call apostles.
And by the way, his body's death was on Passover. Do you observe Passover?
Well, she said no.
Maybe you could tell me how apart from Passover there's eternal life.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I did go through some of that, and it was just like, and then she hit the bombshell with me. She said, no, everybody in the neighborhood is praying for two things. One, that you'll come to your senses and go back to Jesus Christ. And secondly, we are very concerned that you are leading your wife to hell by doing what you're doing and listening to someone who's writing things. I said, well, the person that you're referring to is a friend of mine who is probably the world's best translator. But I have spent most of these years, the vast majority of these years, learning how to translate, so I'm not reliant on because he said. I have translated this stuff very accurately. I may not write well, but I can certainly translate and understand the meaning of every one of these words. And and yes, we can make a few little mistakes here and there, but overall, I know exactly what Yahweh has offered us, what his position is and everything, and whether it be the tablet of stones with the 10 statements on it, or the entire Torah. And in Isaiah it says, yes, ma'am, I've been studying Isaiah here, which is Yahshua, by the way, which is the other side of the coin, which is Yahweh say, or salvation is from Yah, by the way, same as Yahusha. And I can assure you that I'm on solid ground. And they all will follow the path. And this is the path he asked us to follow, and that's the one I'm on. So I really don't feel insecure at all, and believe me, I didn't get a chance to squeeze in because it got a little heavy at that point. I didn't get a chance to really, I wasn't articulate. It really shook me. I mean, I was really kind of caught off guard because I wasn't expecting it. I thought she was coming over with a piece of pie. And I was just smiling and lifting my chops. Said, hot damn. But there was no pie there, but there was a pie in the face, metaphorically.
Yeah.
So, God, I'm stunned, and so I said, well, I said, I can agree with you to disagree. You can follow whatever path you want. I'll follow what path I find in my heart. I'm letting the words lead me, and that's okay. But I'm not going to stand here in my house and have somebody and not correct somebody when they keep using the word name Jesus a Greek
or Lord
manifestation
or
of some kind, I did.
Right.
I brought in Lord too, and I said, and you keep referring to the scriptures in the Bible, and you know what Bible means? And she said, well, no, what does Bible mean? I said, with Baal. Who is Baal? Well, she said, Baal is Satan. And I said, well, duh. Why would you name it after him? Well, that's irrelevant. I'm telling basically. And I'm going, well, at what point can I move the needle on you? No, I was thinking in my head, and I'm saying, and I walked away thinking, this week I shared a lot with a friend of mine who happens to be a Yehudim. And they at least understand where I'm going with it and have rationale, and actually consider what I'm saying, and it possibly could be true, because they've been kind of beat up by their rabbis as well. But and I'm going, I just don't want to talk to a Christian anymore. I really, it's just, why did I ever bother? I know I'm probably going to do it again, but I just, honest to goodness, I know you've been dealing with this in a far greater capacity than I have, but I've just never been assaulted in my own house by the Holy Spirit. I said, the Ruach Kodesh, maybe you should introduce him to the Ruach Kodesh, and they could fight it out, and we could just sit down and have some pie. That would have been a good line, but I mean, but that didn't come to me till after she left. Anyway, so don't feel alone if people are rejecting you out there, because I did come to one conclusion.
Yes,
it's something about Christians that must think that Jesus is what makes you nice. And it must have disturbed him, because I'm a polite person. I mean, I was raised to be polite. I mean, that's just the way we are. And that's the way Southerners by and large are. And I have no qualms against that. That's the way I am. I feel comfortable in that skin, and I do. But they see me as a nice guy because I'm a polite guy. I'm not always that nice, but I'm always polite, unless you really turn on me. And they must think that they only get that from Jesus or something. It's like the Spirit makes you nice or something. Manners are just
But she
manners.
wasn't very nice with you. She was exactly the
no,
opposite. She had Jesus. She came into your house and was condescending.
Yes, very much so.
Damning.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah, and damning nice. Me for damning my wife, as if.
Yeah.
I beg your pardon. Yeah. And the beat goes on, man. It's
wow.
No wonder y'all don't care. Just clean them all out and go start over.
Kirk, you are who you are, and the fact is that we get to take our personalities with us into Shamaim, the heavens.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree with
the
that.
fact that we have different personalities is what's going to make it interesting. I don't think it would be interesting if we didn't have different personalities.
No.
My personality, one of the reasons that I'm so pleased that Yahowah is so focused on Dowd is that, well, I'm not qualified to even clean his sandals, much less wear them. But the fact of the matter is, he's irascible.
Yes.
He wasn't a nice guy.
No,
he was tough as nails.
Yeah.
When somebody would come to him or even get an earshot and say things like this, he would condemn them to hell and tell Yahowah, you are going to condemn them, you are going to do them away, you are going to judge them, you're going to hold them accountable. They're annoying to me, they're annoying to you. You're going to set the record straight, and the fact is, they're not only wrong, they're dead wrong. I mean,
yes.
I personally, I like that. That's the style, I think, even of the I'm positive, the messengers that are going to be the two end times messengers.
Witnesses
the witnesses in Jerusalem. That's where they're going to be. They're spitting out fire from their mouths, and there's not literal fire. They're wielding words wisely, and words are a powerful tool. And so there is this confusion in today's world that to disagree with somebody makes you hateful, and hateful makes you violent and anti-civil. Well, no. You have to be hateful
honest debate,
to be loving and compassionate. Yahowah is hateful because he is loving and compassionate. It's very important to know what to hate and how to hate, And one of the things we ought to hate is deception, particularly deceptions that cause millions, if not billions of people to needlessly sacrifice their souls. And so we ought to hate them. God hates such deceptions. But our response to them ought to be with words. And we ought to use our words until such point as it's a waste of time. And so with the individual you were talking to, after about the third time of, well, why are you calling it a Bible? Because I've translated the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms. There's no mention of anything remotely close to a Bible unless you realize that it's Babel, and Babel is with the Lord. With Babel means to confuse, and with Satan. So I am certain there is no such thing as a Bible, and I'm certain, having translated enough of this, that there is no New Testament or New Covenant or Renewed Covenant, and that I am certain that Jesus is not the Son of God, that He is not the Lord, that He is not the Christ, He is not the Messiah, and that He isn't the shepherd, He isn't returning. They're all talking about when Jesus comes back. No, He's not coming back.
I know.
He's not coming back.
I mentioned a few of those things. That didn't fly either. No.
So I would have been a bit.
You'll appreciate this one line. Line. She kept. I said, what you're quoting is Paul. She said, well, he only wrote half of it.
Only wrote half of what? The Christian New Testament?
After the scriptures, the Christian scriptures. And I said, well, actually, he influenced just about everything there. But regardless.
Because not only was Luke
Lucas and Marcus
dearly beloved, all of Luke, all of the book of Acts, all 14 of his letters, which would include Hebrews, are exclusively his. And then to that you have to add, the only place that a Mark is listed is also part of Paul's entourage, so you have to include Mark. And then when you realize that Matthew wasn't a disciple, and that most of the book of Matthew was written by someone who was clearly influenced by Paul and was not influenced by Yahusha, then you have to realize that, well, Matthew is also part of Paul's influence, and pretty soon you're up to like 2/3, maybe 3/4 of it is overwhelmingly
you're
influenced
overwhelmed
by Paul.
beyond doubt. Yes,
right. And one of the things I would say, why don't you read the end of Corinthians and deal with the fact that Paul admitted that he was demon possessed? No, deal with that.
I'll try.
Just for giggles, and maybe since you think that your New Testament is the Word of God, why don't you find a single place that Paul quotes Jesus, much less Yahusha? And since you think that Yahusha is the end-all of all things, why don't you find a single prophecy, one, where he's named? I'll find 1,000 where Dowd is named. Why don't you find one? One. I've had reason today and yesterday to translate once again the single most misunderstood, misappropriated, and mistranslated prophecy in the entirety of the Torah, Prophets, and Psalms. I've done it twice before. This was my third time. You know what prophecy I'd be talking about if I say, what is the single most often quoted prophecy regarding Jesus that Christians will cite to say this is about the birth of the Son of God?
Oh, you mean the virgin birth?
No, no, not
you talking about when, no?
Because there is no, as you know, there is no virgin birth. It just says the woman is going to be pregnant with a son.
Yeah, Isaiah.
How about Yashaya, Isaiah 9, 6, and 7?
Okay.
For indeed, a child is born. Are you familiar with that one?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. I was born.
That's the number one.
That's
That's the single most often cited. They even have Christmas carols on it. Single most often cited prophecy that's applied to Jesus. May I read it to you?
And please do.
Okay. For indeed, a child was born. Did you catch that? For indeed,
yes.
A child was born. It's not written in the imperfect. It's written in the perfect.
One and done.
There was a period of time when a child was born. We're not talking about a child will be born. For indeed, a child was born before us and near us. A son was provided and placed concerning us. Perfect again. Finite in time. This is not about a eternal, always living. I have, the Son of God existed before creation. The Son of God,
yes,
was resurrected and lives forever. That would be in the imperfect.
That's
Both
correct.
statements are written in the perfect.
Right.
Finite in time. For indeed, a child was born before us and near us. A son was provided concerning us. Now, Yashaya was writing, about 700 BCE?
Yes, sir.
All right. So it had to have been somebody that was born before Isaiah. Got any ideas who that might be? Is there anybody that Yahweh said, this is my son, I am his father, that existed before Isaiah?
Yeah. Good point. Great stuff, man.
Who might be that person?
Dowd.
Oh, Dowd. Okay. By the way, whose name is actually mentioned in this prophecy?
Dowd.
Okay. For indeed, a child was born before us and near us. A son was provided concerning us. And the government was and will be on his shoulder. The government was and will be on his shoulder. The verb is haya. It was written in for it to be conveyed, properly translated, was and will be. You got it. Congratulations. That is correct. I'm sorry for the grammar. Listen, I know that it sounds pedantic when we get into grammar. I don't mean it to be that way, but
no, that's not. That's vital.
Hebrew has these two conjugations, perfect and imperfect. That's all there are. Perfect is something that is finite in time. Imperfect is something that is ongoing in time. So that the child was born, the son was provided, Nathan, given, in the perfect. The government was and will be upon his shoulder, was haya in the imperfect.
Right.
So that means this guy who was in charge of the government, guess what, will be in charge of the government. Are we still talking about the same guy?
Yeah.
Who was the only person that Yahweh said, that's the guy I want to be king?
Dowd.
Actually, he did also say, I wanted Solomon to be king too. But Solomon was chosen to be king for only one reason. He was Dowd's son. And so it was a way of Yahweh saying, I'm going to show my affinity for father-son relationships. And the government. Yeah. Now, can you tell me any incidents, even if you were to refer to the Christian New Testament, can you tell me at any point in time where, and we'll use the correct name, Yosha, the Christian Jesus, had any influence over the government, or that the government was on his shoulder?
Absolutely, the least of all. He was very minuscule in the grand scheme of things.
Did he have any influence over the government of the province of Yehuda?
Absolutely
the Romans were in charge of the province of Yehuda. Did he have any influence over the Romans?
No, he had no influence over the Sanhedrin. He had nothing.
Yes, he had no influence over the Sanhedrin. He had no influence over the Pharisees. He had no influence over the Sadducees. He had no influence on Rome. He had zero influence. So this can't be Jesus.
No.
And the government was and will be upon his shoulder. But Dowd not only had the government on his shoulder, he was only one of two people in the entire history of God's place, his nation and people, that actually was the leader of a united Israel. Right? He actually brought the northern kingdom and Yehuda together, didn't he?
Correct.
And he kept them together, and he defended them.
Yeah.
His son, unfortunately, did not do a good job of keeping them together, and they immediately fell apart after that. And have they ever been together since that time?
No, they were separated after multiple wars. They were gone. The Syrians got them.
So, the only time that the government was actually on one man's shoulder of Yisrael was when Dowd was there. And by the way, since Yisrael and Yehuda are being reunited upon Yahweh's return, and Yehudim and Israelites are being reunited and restored in their relationship with Yahweh upon Yahweh's return, and that Dowd is the one, David, who is returning with him. Once again, it will be a united Yisrael that will be on the shoulders of Dowd. So, and the government. It is Mishara, the dominion and sovereignty on behalf of the king, the responsibility to lead, from to ponder the implications of Sarah. Miss Sarah happens to be a contraction of me, which is an interrogative, meaning to ponder the implication of Sarah is literally, this is what is just so fascinating here, that Sarah is the basis of Israel. Israel is individuals who Sarah engage in and endure, who are empowered and freed by God. And so this is saying it's not just the government, it's the government of those who engage and endure, who are empowered and freed.
Persevere,
by God.
Right.
Was and will be. And when Jesus was here, there was no Yisrael, only the province of Yehuda.
That's correct.
Was and will be Haya and the imperfect on his shoulder, on his back, based upon his continued succession of events transpiring on his ridge line, based upon his eagerness in that which he pursued, his calling early in life, Shechem. And his name and renown has been read and recited and will be designated at. Now it's interesting. This is written in the perfect and 1QISA, and it's the imperfect in the Masoretic text. Now, that does not necessarily mean that the Masoretic text is wrong or that 1QISA is right. There's places where the scribe of 1QISA may have goofed, but you just need to know that there is a difference as to whether it's the perfect or the imperfect here. So, as the perfect, it would be has been read and recited and has been designated, as opposed to will be.
Well,
Counselor providing considered and valuable advice, who is astonishingly brilliant and amazingly insightful. Now, if you read your Christian Bible, it's going to say wonderful counselor.
Yes.
But the problem with that is that in Hebrew, it's wagon red, not red wagon.
Red wagon. Yeah.
In Hebrew, as the case is of almost all Romance languages today, the modifier follows the noun. It does not precede it.
Uh-huh.
So in this particular case, the modifier is counselor, yoretz. The noun is pele. So, and the proper way to say it is not wonderful counselor, but counselor providing considered and valuable advice, who is astoundingly brilliant and amazingly insightful. If you were to list a single attribute of Dowd that rises above all others, what would it be?
Psalms. He wrote all those Psalms. And there's more.
Yeah.
I mean, my God.
What would the
everybody loves it.
If there's an attribute or a characteristic that shines most boldly through the Psalms, it's not the fact that he was irascible and suffered fools poorly.
No, he loved Yahweh.
Suffered them well, which is accurately. But my view is that the thing that distinguishes Dowd from all others who ever lived is he is the single most articulate and brilliant person who ever lived.
Oh, yeah, no question.
He is astoundingly brilliant and amazingly insightful. It's his insights and his brilliance that he provides through his advice and counsel through the Proverbs and the Psalms that make him the ultimate gift to humankind.
Agreed.
That's what makes him special.
Sure.
So what this is saying is that, first of all, the government of Yisrael was and will be on his shoulder, and his name and reputation has been read and recited and has been designated counselor, providing considerable and value advice, who is astoundingly brilliant and amazingly insightful. Now, when Yosha, the Christian Jesus, was here, did he ever refer to himself as a counselor?
No.
No. In fact, if you believe any part of the Christian New Testament, he said, "I got to go away so the counselor can arrive."
That's right.
Right.
That is an actual quote.
He's not the counselor. So the first thing that's going to be said about him isn't that he is a brilliant counselor, because he's not even the counselor. He said, "I got to go away for the counselor to arrive."
To come, yes.
Yeah.
Good point.
Oh, by the way, is there any point where Dowd and all of his Psalms and Mizmor and all of the dialogue we have from him in Shamuel and the Kings and that sort of thing, Malak, is there any place where he quoted Jesus?
No, of course not.
But even in the Christian New Testament, are there multiple places where Yosha quoted Dowd?
Yeah, absolutely, especially on his deathbed.
In fact, the single most important moment of him being here, which is to serve as the peacock lamb.
Peacock lamb, yeah.
He quoted from the opening line of the 22nd Mizmor to explain what it was he was doing. And his name and renown has been read and recited, and has been designated as counselor providing considered and valuable advice, who was astoundingly brilliant and insightful. A Gabor, a valiant and heroic individual with a prominent military and political standing in the community of God. You know what the Christian Bible will tell you? That he's God Almighty. What they've done again is they changed the order. Actually, they left the Hebrew order, and they reported the translation in the order of the Hebrew, which is they're dunderheads. The fact is that Gabor comes after El, which means it's speaking of El. And Gabor does not mean Almighty. He's not called God Almighty. Oh, by the way, was Yosha ever called God Almighty?
No.
No. Is Yosha God Almighty? No.
No.
But this doesn't say that. The reason that Jews of the day did not accept Yosha as the Messiah, beyond the fact that he wasn't the Messiah, is that he wasn't a Gabor. Dowd is Yahweh's Gabor. Gabor means a valiant and heroic individual with a prominent military and political standing in the community. A Gabor is a powerful person who prevails, a mighty warrior, a brave and strong soldier, a capable and proven defender, a champion, confirming the influence and strengthening the nature of, in this case, of God.
Well, that's the door that was left open for Akiva. That's how he could pull it off with.
Absolutely, because he
was a Gabor.
Not
a great one, but he was.
Akiva wasn't, but Bar Kokhba was a warlord. Bar Kokhba was not valiant. He was not heroic. He wasn't prominent. He wasn't political. He didn't defend the community. He was just a scummy warlord. But nonetheless, he was a warlord, and Gabor was saying, see, we got one now. But of course they didn't. And even rabbis to this point say Jesus does not qualify. He's not a Gabor. And this is, the prophecy says, a Gabor of God, not God Almighty. And that, God, I want to tell you something. You know, you said you're a nice guy, and I claim to be more like Dowd. So this really pisses me off. There isn't any translator anywhere who doesn't know that saying that he will be called God Almighty is absolutely wrong. Gabor does not mean Almighty, and it does not follow God in English. And sorry, it is impossible, and they know it. Gabor is a military man. Listen, God's not fond of militaries. He's not fond of governments, with one exception. One. Dowd. That's it. Why? Because Dowd was the shepherd protecting God's flock. That's why. Because Dowd unified and defended God's nation. That's why. And because every time, even when Dowd was being pursued by Saul, he'd say, okay, Saul, enough of this already. Time out. There's a threat to Israel. I'm going to go deal with it. And God said, okay, we'll take care of this. 15 minutes later, he was back. It's just God protected his people through Dowd. And when God's coming back, it's not in his style to do anything alone. He's going to wipe out all of the Goyim who have gone after and attacked and tried to overthrow Yisrael with Dowd. He's coming back with his Gabor. It's a time where Yahweh has to defend his people from Muslims, from Christians, from socialist secular humanists, from Gentile governments, and the guy that's going to do it is the one guy Yahweh's always been able to count on. Dowd. Dowd is the ultimate Gabor. When you see Gabor in Hebrew, the picture on the milk carton
right next to it
is Dowd. There isn't a second. It's Dowd of God. Then this says that it says in the Christian Bible they have the word order wrong again. They say everlasting Father, right? Or eternal Father. No, it's Ed. Ed means to be a witness.
Yeah, like the enduring witness. Ed
right. So he is an enduring witness providing eternal testimony for the Father. Now, guess who didn't provide testimony for the Father? Yosha. Father conveys and communicates in Hebrew.
Yeah.
There isn't a single thing that Yosha said in Hebrew that's been reliably maintained. Not a word. So he most certainly, he didn't even provide testimony for the Father that lasted beyond the moment that the words that he echoed reverberated in the air. They didn't last a minute. And yet Dowd's, last time I checked, the Mizmor that Dowd wrote and the Mashal that Dowd wrote, they were written 3,000 years ago.
And children recite them in Sunday school.
And we've been reciting them, we've been reading them, we've been proclaiming them, we've been translating them, we've been celebrating them over these last few years.
Mm-hmm.
Dowd's songs will be sung forever.
I believe it.
He was a prophet speaking for Yahowah. He is the one who's provided an eternal witness, an everlasting testimony on behalf of the Father. The next is the leader who conveys and represents the official position, which is Hashar, the official ruler of the government who acts and delivers, who has the authority and power to prevail with regard to acting on shalom, on reconciliation and restoration, salvation and companionship in the relationship. So he is talking about his witness now, he is the leader who conveys and represents the official position on reconciliation and restoration. Tremendously increasing, that would be Rob, the ability to learn about and appropriately respond to Lamb. Lamb is the Hebrew word for teach. It's a shortened version of lamad. Lamad is one of the most commonly used words in the Torah. Lamad means to teach and to learn, to gain information through instruction and then respond appropriately. That's lamad. Lam is a shortened form of lamad. So he's increasing the ability to learn about how to appropriately respond to La Mishra, the means to engage and endure, acting upon the capacity to be liberated and empowered. We've already talked about Mishra. This is the second time it's written. It is a compound of me, which means to ponder the implications of, and Sarah, the basis of Israel. Sarah means to engage, to endure, to be empowered, to be freed. So, he is tremendously increasing. And boy, that's the beauty of Dowd's Mizmor and Mashal. He tremendously increases our ability to learn about and appropriately respond to HaMishra, the means to engage and endure, acting upon the capacity to be liberated. And as a result of this approach, reconciliation and restoration, as well as complete satisfaction and total contentment, shalom, will be without end. Will never cease. If you listen to and learn from and properly respond to the information that Dowd has shared with us about the means to engage and endure with God, the capacity to be liberated and empowered by Him, then as a result of that approach, reconciliation and restoration, complete satisfaction and total contentment will be without end, never ceasing, cannot be negated, and are unbounded and limitless without constraint. Before the throne of, upon the seat of honor of, there's a name here.
I'm sure it's Dowd.
3 letters long in Hebrew. Deleth, Wa, Deleth. Before the throne of Dowd. Not upon the throne of Jesus. Do you think that if God wanted to say Jesus in the prophecy in Isaiah, that He would have written Jesus? Well, no, he couldn't have.
Actually,
there's no J in Hebrew.
No,
and
that's
Zeus would be a
little too pagan.
Would be the name.
A little too pagan for his taste. Yeah.
Too close to
but he
Zeus,
knows how to say
the Greek god.
Yeah.
But do you think that he would have written Yosha if he is going to say, and this is going to all happen before the throne of Yosha? That God's not stupid. He knows the difference between Dowd and Yosha. I mean, just saying. Do you think that God knows the difference between Dowd and Yosha?
I do. Obviously, Paul disagrees.
Do you think that he's familiar with both names?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Of course.
So since he's not stupid, since he's familiar with both names, if
invented
he
the language
used the name Dowd, who do you think he's talking about?
I think he's talking about Dowd.
Now, if his intent were to say, I'm just using Dowd because I don't like to use that other name, but what you ought to do is every time you see the name Dowd, you ought to discount it and just put in that other name that I didn't use.
Yeah, reinsert, yes. Placeholders. Break.
I mean, come on. You little woman with your apple pie? Yeah. Are you incapable of thinking? Before the throne of Dowd, as well as upon his kingdom and through his considered advice and counsel. His. Whose? Dowd's. His throne, Dowd's throne. His kingdom, Dowd's kingdom. His considered advice and counsel, Dowd's. All of this. The eternal witness. Never-ending means to reconciliation and restoration. All of it. The ability to learn and respond are all based upon Dowd, his seat of honor, and his kingdom. Upon his kingdom and through his considered counsel, to be prepared and established with it. It here. Well, it is feminine. What word? I'm going to read a series of words here in the sentence, and you tell me which one is feminine. Okay?
Okay.
We have shalom. Shalom is not an it, but shalom is not feminine, is it?
No.
We have without end, which is this negated ketz, not feminine, is it?
No.
Nope.
So there's a reason
throne
it's
is
feminine.
kese. You probably haven't looked it up, but you think kese is masculine or feminine?
Masculine.
Yeah, the throne is masculine.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Dowd, by the way, is masculine, isn't it?
Yes.
How about the word malaka, which is
Malaka,
kingdom and considered advice and counsel? Malak with an at the end of it.
Well, the at the end of it.
That might be feminine?
It's a hey. Yeah, it's a hey.
Yeah, it's feminine. So what is it that will prepare and how are we, this says, to be prepared and established with it. What's it? Dowd's advice and kingdom. That is how we are prepared and established. It's feminine. You can't make this stuff up.
Mm-hmm. No. Well, you have to throw everything out. I mean, and then what do you got? You got nothing. I mean, that's absurd.
Yep. Then, with the means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes, misfot. Misfot is another one of these compound words, and I wonder why it took us so long. I mean, it took me until about 3 years ago that I finally figured it out, because you have all of these words like like Sarah, which is obviously Sarah. Everybody knows that it's based on Sarah. We know that Israel is based on Sarah. Sarah is the name of Abraham's wife. She was the mother of the covenant. We know that it's Sarah, and we just know that it has the interrogatory before it. Well, misfot does too. And everybody knows, you look up Mishpat in any lexicon, they'll say Mishpat is based on Shaphat. What they won't tell you is it's based upon Shaphat with an interrogatory, because the interrogatories, me, my, are the interrogatory in Hebrew. That's how you begin a question with Hebrew, of who, what, where, why, when, and how. It tells you, ponder the implications of this. So Shaphat means to decide, to judge, to exercise good judgment, to be discerning. That's what Shaphat means. So this means with the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes as part of a plan, and the means to decide as a prescription based upon an official proclamation, depicting how the judge will determine each case, remaining completely fair and yet consistent from to ponder the implications of Shaphat, deciding, judging, and being discriminating, as well as resolving controversies. So this one says, Ba Mishpat. So with the means to exercise good judgment and justly resolve disputes, and by tzedakah. Tzedakah. One of the words that is used more often than any other pertaining to Dowd. He's right. Tzedakah means to be correct.
Yeah.
To be right,
upright.
To be correct, to be fair and just, acquitting and vindicating, honest and blameless, innocent and in full accord with the standard. With the means to exercise good judgment and justifiably resolve disputes, and being right from this time and forevermore. Well, if it was Jesus, you'd have a real problem with that, wouldn't you? Because
where would
he wouldn't be here for another 700 years. So this council, this kingdom, this seat of honor, this means to eternal restoration and reconciliation was from this moment right now, 700 BCE, and forevermore. Min ata wa ad olam.
Forever.
And it's so damn obvious that the English translations have butchered this because they want to deceive. They want their Jesus, who was made in the image of Dionysus, to appear as if he were God. But there is a God, and his name is Yahweh, and this prophecy concludes with the deep devotion and passion, the kina, the zeal and the favor, the strong desire and ardent love of Yahweh, of the spiritual implements, will make this happen.
Pretty plain. So
do you think that when God ends it like that, and he said this is all about Dowd, and Dowd is the person that I'm talking about here, the only person I've named here, and that he says he's going to make this happen, do you think he's lying?
Don't happen. No.
Any chance he's lying here? So if he's not lying, then Christianity is a lie. It's just all there is to it. There is no other rational way to deal with this other than to recognize that the whole concept of replacement theology, beginning by transferring everything that God promised to Dowd to Jesus, is a lie. Dowd is the Messiah, not Jesus. Dowd is the King of Kings, not Jesus. It's Dowd who is coming back with Yahweh, not Jesus. Jesus never called himself the Messiah because that's the title that God gave to Dowd.
No,
Jesus, therefore, cannot be the Christ.
No.
Jesus never called himself the Son of God because the Son of God is Dowd, at least according to God.
I
would think that God knows what he's talking about. He is my son. I am his father. It's Dowd.
If you represent the fall, then you have to say what the Father says.
There's really nothing more important than this. I've had somebody write me and say, just get over this Dowd thing already. Let's get on this. We'll see what Yahweh has to say. Let's learn from it. You just got to get off this Dowd thing.
This is what Yahweh
How can I get
off
this Dowd thing? That's all that Yahweh wants to talk about.
Well, the real,
when it comes to
issue,
positive, when it comes to uplifting, when it comes to the truth that is steadfast, when it comes to that which is reconciling and restoring, it's all about Dowd.
Yeah, the whole issue is Dowd versus Yosha, or Dowd versus Jesus, or Paul turning Jesus into all the promises of Dowd. It's
a huge percentage of the Psalms are Dowd versus Shaul, the Christian Paul.
Shaul,
so,
yes.
That is pervasive.
That's
the whole Christian thing is, let's take everything that God said to Dowd and about Dowd, and let's just take it away from Dowd and apply it to Jesus.
Well,
do you know how many prophecies name Jesus by name? I asked that, talking to that idiot woman that came by your house. The answer is none. Not one.
Well, she told me that she's read all the stuff about the Dead Sea Scrolls, and all the theologians have agreed that it only confirms the Christian church, Christian scriptures. I said, no, ma'am. That is not correct.
No, ma'am. No,
I will kindly show you how to translate yourself so you can discover it for yourself, and then
But lady, you are so smitten with your faith that even when the Word of God condemns your faith, says that there is no New Testament, there is no gospel of grace, that there is no annulling of the Torah. That when I prove to you, using God's own words, that your religion is absolutely false, it's the antithesis of the truth, you couldn't deal with it.
That is absolutely.
You're just incapable of dealing with it. Your faith means more to you than the truth. Your faith means more to you than the Word of God. That's just the bottom line here. So it's a waste of time talking to you. Yeah, waste of time talking to you, because if I were to show you what God actually said and how that condemns your religion, calling your religion the plague of death, you'd still reject him. You'd reject God in favor of your religion.
Yeah, isn't it just so awful, so sad?
Oh,
God,
stunning.
Yes, indeed. Wow.
So let's return to the mess that is the so-called Christian New Testament. Where we left off, we were talking about a group of people that I really admire. I didn't know a lot about them until I had to look up the origins of, according to Hebrew, which is the source for the Sermon on the Mount. The people who maintained it, who treasured it, were called Ebonim. I had a friend, and in fact I've shared some of my correspondence with him, who really a thoughtful guy. He's such an intelligent, such a breath of fresh air as somebody who has left Roman Catholicism and is seeking the truth. And he started off, he said, I really want to know how the first disciples, expressed themselves, what they had to say and what they did. And I said, well, the first to follow the way, they were called Ebonim. And what the Ebonim did is they were Torah observant. They
just like Yosha
focused on. They attended the Moed Mikre, the invitations to meet with God. They were engaged in the covenant. They knew that Yosha was the name of the Pesach lamb, and the only thing that they read of Yosha apart from the, what's in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, was the Sermon on the Mount, as it was maintained and according to Hebrew. Yeah. And so they were called Ebonim. And I had thought that Ebonim was something that was just, because they're called Ebonites in the way that Christianity skews everything. And they say, then they will admit, the Christians will admit that they call themselves this based upon the meek. How on the Beatitudes, that, blessed are the meek. Well, he recited the Sermon on the Mount in what language? Hebrew.
In Hebrew.
And they all know that the word that is rendered meek in English is actually from Ebon, and in the plural Ebonim. And I hadn't seen it, or I'd probably seen it and translated it in other places of the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, but I'd never put the connection until once you see it here, and now you know who these people are. Now it just appears everywhere. I've seen it all over the places I'm translating. God is constantly speaking of the Ebon and the Ebonim. Okay, he loved these people. He's speaking about them all over the time. That's why, I constantly say that, I make mistakes and I'm learning as we go, and I'm really glad that I don't know it all, because it's so much fun to learn something, and then once your eyes are open to it, you see it everywhere. And so this is the Ebonim happen to be an example of this. Yeah. So
Plague of Death.
The Ebonim universally rejected Paul. Yeah. They celebrated the Mikra, the Bereth, and the Shabbat. So to the church fathers, they were Judaizers. They were heretics. But far from rabbinical, they were the opposite of a Judaizer. There is no such thing as a Judaizer, by the way. There never has been. It's a Pauline myth. But they weren't even rabbinical. Rabbi Akiba and the followers of Bar Kokhba persecuted them. They thought that the Ebonim were a tremendous threat because Yosha despised the rabbis. He despised rabbinical Judaism. And so the Ebonim weren't into Judaism at all. And so when you challenge Rabbi Akiba, oh boy, you must be a heretic, just like challenging the Roman Catholic Church. You were a heretic. And so the Christians hated them, and the religious Jews hated them. That's because God's anti-religious. And they wouldn't accept the messianic claims, of course, of Bar Kokhba. Hated by both religions, to study, by the way, to speak a little bit about Judaism at this point. The father of rabbinic Judaism, which is the only form of the religion that's practiced today, was Rabbi Akiba. Rabbi Akiba is the single most disastrous person in the history of Jews. Well, not the single most. Paul is probably the single most debilitating Jew of all time, because Paul created the religion of Christianity, and he based Christianity on being anti-Semitic. So no one has harmed Jews more than Paul. But second on to Paul is Akiba. Without Akiba, there is no messianic claims of Bar Kokhba. Without Akiba and Bar Kokhba, there is no second Jewish wars. So the Jews came. The Romans
they would not have been wiped out,
and and in 70, at this point, Paul's letters are out there, and they had no problem with Rome to come in and destroy these guys. They destroyed the temple, but they didn't kill a lot of Jews. The Romans, because of their ego and because Rome was a slave economy, they would always, from Julius Caesar on, they would always bring back a representative numbers of slaves so that they could parade them through the streets, because it's the Romans are like Muslims. They're what they believe and what they stand for is so phony, so fake, so nasty, that the only thing that they've got going for them is if they defeat somebody, they can lord it over them. And so they always parade slaves through the streets, and then they have a slave economy. And so there were some slaves taken, and of course they looted the temple of his treasures, and they used that money and those slaves to build the Colosseum, which is probably the single most disgusting human edifice of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until Rabbi Akiba and Bar Kokhba that Israel, the province of Yehudah, and Jerusalem were wiped off the face of the earth. That's what they did.
Yeah.
And it would not have happened without Rabbi Akiba. Rabbi Akiba is the Jew responsible for the diaspora. He is responsible for Jews being led off into slavery throughout Europe, and therefore for them having faced the Holocaust. No Rabbi Akiba, there is no Holocaust.
Yeah.
No Rabbi Akiba, all of the things, these terrible things that have happened to Jews, many of them are negated. Now, if you were to eliminate Paul and Akiba, it's 90% of it goes away.
Mm-hmm.
But for Jews to adhere to a religion that was founded by the man that is the most responsible for them being kicked out of their homeland and treated like slaves around the world, brain dead. I mean, his claim to fame was the false Messiah, Bar Kokhba. Why would you trust him? If he got that wrong, and it led to Jews being annihilated, the land being salted, it being renamed by the Romans from the province of Yehudah to Philistia.
Philistia. Yeah.
Why?
Why did they?
Why would you form a religion based upon this nincompoop?
Don't be so rhetorical. Why? Really?
Why?
What is the excuse? What are they? It's like talking to that Christian lady.
Out of your absolute mind.
What's wrong with you?
Well, what's wrong with you?
These are the smart people. These ain't the dumb people. These are the smart people. What's wrong with you?
And like the elections just took place. I guess the third election in Israel, and essentially Gantz via Netanyahu, and they have what I think is the world's dumbest political system, which is the parliamentary system. And I think it's the world's dumbest because what it does is it forces people to form coalitions, and it's the coalitions that cause the problems. So on one side you have Netanyahu with his Likud party. Got nothing against Likud, other than I'm not political, but you got the Likud party. But the Likud party can only form a government with the Shahs, with the super right-wing Orthodox religious Jews. So any time that Likud, therefore Netanyahu, is empowered, he is continuing to offer the religious Jews concessions. Only 50% of them work. 50% of them don't work. They're just dependents upon the state. They're parasites. They don't serve in the IDF, which means they don't defend their country. They're parasites. And because Israel does not have a constitution, there's a letter of agreement that shares responsibility between the rabbis and the secular state. And it is probably, outside of the Islamic world, the most hostile place to be a woman. You can't get divorced. Men can take advantage of you. You can't get divorced in Israel without a rabbi, and the rabbis give total autonomy to the man.
Really?
It is disgusting. And the rabbi, there's a rabbi right now in Israel that's being sued because for a donation, he'll bring the dead back to life. Large enough donation. For a donation, he will cure you of any disease. Oh, yeah.
Really?
And he's got a huge following. Yeah.
He's
just like the nincompoop in Korea. You know how Korea is one of the worst countries in the world on the coronavirus? Well, it's because there's an idiot messianic guy in Korea. He has a church like 200,000 or 300,000 devotees. He locks everybody up so they're all constrained. And so somebody came with coronavirus, he won't let them out. And so they just passed it on one to another. In fact, the Korean government is considering indicting him for murder.
That's murder. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, there's idiots all over the world. Yahweh always works through people. But the last time he worked through somebody in this kind of a way, as a Messiah, as a king, as a prophet, all three of those were Dowd. The last time he communicated through a prophet was Malachi, and that was 2,500 years ago. So anyway, I'm taking forever to get through this, but
it's okay.
By 133, few, if any, of the Ebonim survived. The Bonim survived, but they left us a gift, an affirmation that the disciple Loe had indeed transcribed Yahushua's words in Hebrew, and that they were the first to treasure, according to Hebrew, along with the Torah. The Sermon on the Mount is central to what the Ebonim desire. That is the reason. I've said, listen, I was wrong about Matthew. I thought that Matthew was a disciple and that it was one of the two eyewitness accounts. I was wrong. But the reason I was wrong is that when you read it, and you read particularly the Sermon on the Mount, and you recognize the Sermon on the Mount is absolutely lethal to the risen Christianity. So here's the first book of the Christian Bible, or their New Testament, and you got Matthew, and it starts off in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, and you got nothing left of Christianity. It's completely destroyed. You see the Christians, they want to hold up John 3:16, taken out of context, of course. You don't
every football game.
ever see them holding up Matthew 5, Matthew 6, Matthew 7. No, because the Sermon on the Mount absolutely destroys Christianity. It says, don't think I came to do away with the Torah of the prophets. I didn't come to do away with them. Not a single letter, or even the stroke of a single letter in the Torah of prophets will be annulled so long as the heavens and earth exist.
And he's quoting Dabarim there, Moshe there. So you go right back to the source of the Torah.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the in the Dead Sea Scroll collections, which book has the most copies of the Dead Sea Scroll collection?
Well, I thought it was Yahshua. Is it not Yahshua?
Nope. The longest scroll is Yahshua.
Okay.
The second longest scroll and the book that has by far the most copies. What do you think it is?
Well, I would have thought Genesis or something like that, or Bereshith, but maybe it's Devarim.
Nope.
I'll give up. You have to tell me.
The Mizmor, the Psalms.
Well, the Mizmor Psalm, of course, yeah.
Psalms, by far.
Yeah.
Dowd's words.
Yeah, that's Dowd's words.
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
Overwhelming.
You tricked me. I was looking for the trick.
In this Christian New Testament, which is, mostly rubbish anyway, but which book do you think is quoted the most by Yahusha?
Probably the 20. Well, he does the 22nd Psalm. He does.
Overwhelmingly, it's the Psalms again.
Yeah, well, the Psalms in particular. Yeah.
He's quoting Dowd again, all over the place.
Well, he is the most successful writer.
Dabarim is the second most number of scrolls, or Dabarim, and the most is so second most is Dabarim scrolls. Second most citations is happens to be Dabarim. By the way, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are a number of psalms that did not make the Masoretic collection. Which is, maybe surprising to people. Let me read something that is in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's called the Great Psalm Scroll. It's maybe even longer than the Great Isaiah Scroll. Called the Great Psalm Scroll. And Dowd, son of Jesse, was wise. Now, this one's not written by Dowd. It's like the 89th. It was written
about Dowd.
Of Dowd, okay? That's it. And Dowd, son of Jesse, was wise, and a light like the light of the sun, and a scribe, and discerning and correct, even perfect, in all of his ways before God and men. And Yahweh gave him a discerning and enlightening spirit. You know, when Dowd was first anointed by Samuel at Yahweh's instructions, when he found him brought him out of Bethlehem, and he said, "This is the one. I want you to anoint him the Messiah." The next line is, "And Yahweh's spirit came upon him in an extremely powerful and empowering way, and stayed with him all of his life."
Yes, I know that verse. Yeah.
Yes. And upon him a discerning and enlightening spirit. And he wrote 3,600 psalms and songs to sing before the altar over the whole elevating sacrifice. And all of the days of the year, 365 songs. And for the Shabbat offering, 52 songs. And for the offering of the new moons, also psalms. And for all of the festivals and feasts, especially for the day of reconciliation, another 30 psalms. And all of the songs that he uttered were 400. And trying to read this, and it's kind of dark up here, so excuse me. 446. And songs for making music, an additional 4. And the total was 4,050 songs.
Well, that's significant.
And all of these he uttered through prophecy, which had been given to him before the Most High.
That's amazing. That's
pretty
really
amazing, huh? That's not in. You won't find that in your Masoretic. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls.
No. Wow.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Collectively, the combination of the authentic material compiled in Matthew 3 through 7, and perhaps portions of Matanya. No, I shouldn't say Matanya anymore. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew 23, which is the Olivet Discourse. The Olivet Discourse is kind of interesting because so much of it is right out of almost word for word out of Zechariah. And so it's really easy to put together everything that was said in the Olivet Discourse because it's essentially Zechariah. When compared to the weight of the Greeks' irrational, anti-Semitic, and otherwise unattested conclusion, represents the lion's share of what was unique to the final product of the Gospel of Matthew. Remember, we learned that 600 of this, whatever it is, 660 lines of Mark are just plagiarized into Matthew, and then there's a huge portion of Luke that is plagiarized into to the book of Matthew, such that 80% of Matthew is plagiarized from those two sources, and only 20% of it's unique. Of the 20% that's unique, it falls into two categories. 10% of it falls under Sermon on the Mount, Yosha's experience in the Jordan River, his experience before Satan, the Olivet Discourse, where he's talking about what's going to happen next, and the fact that post Bakodim, he immediately goes to meet with his brother Jacob. So of the 20% that's unique, half of that comes from, according to Hebrew. The other half comes from But I, Paul, say. Successful fabricators seldom invent anything from whole cloth, but instead weave in threads of truth, usurping the credibility of others, such as the basis of the Book of Enoch, such as the basis of the Gospel of Thomas. It's the basis of the Quran. It's the foundation of the protocols of the elders of Zion. They're all plagiarized. The Christian who compiled Matthew, and by the way, plagiarizing and getting something close enough that it appears credible is far worse than if you just based a lie on a complete fabrication, because the lie on complete fabrication does not corrupt the truth, which the counterfeit does, and it's not credible. The counterfeit has credibility because it seeks to copy that which people are familiar with. The fact that any part of it is untrue makes it all untrue. That's why Yosha gave that whole diatribe at the end of the Sermon on about trees. You know, he is not talking about fruit trees. He's just saying that there are good trees and there are bad trees, and there is nothing bad about a good tree, and there is nothing good about a bad tree. You know, these people that say, well, you can't discount everything, Paul Rose. Some of the stuff he says is really good. No. It's a bad tree. It's all bad. Because even the little bit that he gets right, when it's mixed in those lies, all it does is serve to make the lies appear more credible. It's all rotten. It's the nature of a counterfeit. When you're looking, it's readily apparent that the author of Matthew, who wrote it around 90 CE, Yosha's final words were spoken in 33. This was written 60 years thereafter. In that period of time in Israel where life was short and had no value, even if he wrote it in Israel, the province of Yehuda. In fact, it wasn't even the province of, I guess it would be at 100 CE. It's still the province of Yehuda. You had to get renamed until 135. That life was short. The idea that 60 years later, let's say if the person would have been even 20 at the time that Yosha lived in 33. There isn't anybody that lived to 80. Nobody. So this person, even at 60, people just didn't live that long. The average life expectancy of a Jew under the Roman occupation during that period was probably closer to 25 or 30 years. So there's two generations. The person that wrote this was not even alive when Yosha spoke these words. Keep that in mind. They weren't even alive. They weren't even close to being. They probably weren't even born until a decade or two after he spoke these words. That's just the facts. The Christian who compiled Matthew would have been aware that the early followers of Yosha had treasured the disciples' eyewitness testimony in a book called According to Hebrew. It's also readily apparent that he had copies of Mark and Luke, as well as Acts, in addition to many of Paul's letters. He just simply blended them all together to create his gospel, leaving its hideous conclusion to be embellished by a far more nefarious fellow, this one named Eusebius. He followed suit, pilfering from Acts of Pilate, a spurious work which reads eerily like the conclusion of the resulting compilation now known as the Gospel of Matthew. What we know for certain is the disciple Levi, as an eyewitness, strove to accurately record Yosha's testimony in the language he spoke. According to the disciple, the joy he expressed in initially reuniting with his brother Jacob proved that he came back for the lost children of Israel. But this would be all disregarded because it was way too Jewish for the Roman Catholic Church. We also know that those who gained custody of these documents, those who compiled the church's canon, which became the New Testament of the Holy Bible, were scum. The church fathers were scum. They were everything they falsely projected on God's people. An arrogant and deadly, scheming brood of religious racists and consummate liars. If you think this is an unfair generalization or an oversimplification, buckle your seatbelt. The oldest surviving manuscript of the Gospel of Matthew is P104. It was written, guess where? You think it was written in Israel? No. You think it was written in Jerusalem? No. You think it was written around the time of Jesus? No.
No.
It was written in Alexandria, Egypt. Now that's telling because it attests to the fact that Christians would return to the place from which Israel had been freed. Christianity took them right back into Egypt. The Greek text was scribed sometime before 200 CE. You hear that? The oldest copy of the Gospel of Matthew was scribed sometime before 200 CE. It covers Matthew 21, 34 through 37. Now, I'm going to read this, Kirk, and by the time we're done, we will no longer be broadcasting. We'll still be recording. Okay. I know you're not feeling well, and we won't prolong this very long. So I'll read this. We'll have a little bit of program beyond the recording because we have a lot of people that are listening on the phones, and they'll still be able to hear us. And the vast majority of people that listen to this program listen to the archives, which is what I would do because you can listen to the archives at your convenience as opposed to our convenience, right? Not to say that this isn't our convenience. It's just that this is how we choose to celebrate.
There's a lot of time zones involved in this, yeah. So that's
a lot of time zones. Yeah, I'm not even in a U.S. time zone now. I'm on the Eastern Caribbean time zone. Yeah, so it's
how is paradise? How is paradise, by the way?
Yeah, it's 10 o'clock where I am.
Wow, it is late, isn't it?
Yeah. This is what you'll find, and that parchment. It's not parchment, it's papyrus. Not parchment at all, it's papyrus. That's one of the differences, by the way. The Dead Sea Scrolls, they're all written on papyrus. When Yahweh says, I want you to take out a writing instrument and write this down, it's always on an animal skin. Always parchment. The Christian New Testament, no. It's all on the reeds that came from Egypt. It's papyrus. The book itself is written on the very reeds upon which Moshe was drawn out of.
Well, there you go. Good connection. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Christianity took everybody right back into bondage in Egypt. That's just astounding. God said, I'm going to take you out of Egypt and free you. They took them right back. So it's all on papyrus.
I don't want to be free.
I don't want to be free. Don't let me be free. I want my faith. I just want my freedom. When the harvest time approached, he sent his servants out to the tenants to collect his fruit. The tenants seized his servants. They beat one, they killed another, and they stoned a third. Then he sent other servants to them, more than the first time, and the tenants treated them the same way. Last of all, he sent his son to them. They will respect my son, he said. Now, of course, Christians will say, Jesus is talking about himself. They'll respect my son. No, he's talking about Dowd. We know that Yosha asked Dowd, or Yahweh asked Dowd, not Yosha. Yahweh asked Dowd to tend his garden.
Yeah, Dowd. Mm-hmm.
So when you're talking about collecting fruit, there's only one garden that's spoken about. Well, there's the Garden of Eden, the Garden of Great Joy. There's only one garden that God asked someone to plant, and that God talks about someone tending his garden. So if there's a garden to be tended, there's only one that Yahweh speaks about. It's Dowd. So we know this is Dowd because God makes a really big deal about the garden that he asked Dowd to tend. Now, he's not telling Dowd, I want you to go plant these grapes and plant these cucumbers, and I really, really like starfruit and kiwi. Oh, my God, kiwi is to die for. Let's plant some kiwi. No. Listen, one of the things that people really get hung up on, we're all Torah observant. I don't think we're doing everything the Torah says. Most of us, well, not most, but a huge percentage of what the Torah says, you can't do.
No,
but
there's no temple. There's a whole bunch of things.
There isn't anything that the Torah says that you can't learn from. And so this garden is a metaphor. It's attributed to Dowd. It is a metaphor. Because when you plant something, you plant seeds, they take root and grow. The seeds that you sow are the words that Dowd communicated that took root and grow, and they bear good fruit. That's what he's talking about. So we know that Yahweh asked Dowd to tend his garden, and that he is God's son, who the world failed to respect, right? In fact, the basis of Christianity is the failure to respect Dowd, because they stole everything from Dowd and gave it to their Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pissed.
So talk about killing him and robbing him and stoning him. Talk about not respecting him. The basis of Christianity is not respecting him.
Yes.
I mean, all that Paul says of Dowd is he was a sperm donor.
I know, ain't that low?
Oh, God. It is so disgusting. He even said he's dead and rotting in his grave. Huh. Sorry. It is Christians duped by Paul who have remained clueless in this regard. As a result, they would make this a battle between Jesus and his killers. So they've turned this, the Eusebius and the Roman Catholicism would augment this to turn this into a battle between Jesus and his Jewish killers, always cheating and conspiring, those power-hungry Jews. Huh, takes one to know one, I guess.
I guess indeed.
Well, verses 38 through 42 were not part of the papyrus. The lone pre-Constantine witness to the 21st chapter, wherein we now know how this story was twisted to implicate Jews by the Roman Catholic Church, and that they did so in the 4th century. But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, "This is the heir. Come, let's kill him, and let's take his inheritance." Oh, come on. You got to do better than that. Do you think that if you're a bunch of thugs and you kill a man's son, that he's going to say, "Hey, oh boy, I'm going to give you the inheritance. I was going to give my inheritance to my son, but now that you killed him, you're my guys. I'm going to give it to you"? I mean, how stupid do you have to believe that that came out of God's mouth?
Well, no fixing stupid.
It's as stupid as you have to be one of these right-wing neo-Nazi nincompoops that wants to kill Jews because they say that Jews are trying to wipe out the white race. No, it's the other way around, idiot. Jews have no desire whatsoever, by the way, they are Caucasian, to wipe out the white race and have never done so. But Gentiles have done a hell of a job trying to perpetrate genocide on the Jews. So you just have to be stupid to believe this shit. And excuse me, it's shit.
Yeah.
But when the tenants saw the son, they said to each other, "This is the heir. Come, let us kill him and take his inheritance." So they took him and threw him out of the vineyard, and they killed him. Now, by the way, if you took him out of the vineyard and you killed him, how does that land become the murderers? After you took him out of the land to kill him, you're going to jail and you're going to get killed. You don't get to inherit the land that is owned by the father of the son you killed. It don't work that way. It has never worked that way. Therefore, when the owner of the vineyard comes, what will he do to those tenants?
Seek revenge. Are you kidding? Kill him.
Yeah, which is why no one in their right mind would kill somebody and say, "Whoa, we kill him, we're going to get the dad's inheritance."
Yeah.
He will bring those wretches to a wretched end. Do you think that Yosha said wretches? And I've read a lot of things that God, I mean, I've been translating Yahweh's testimony almost 19 years now. Time goes by fast when you're having a good time. 19 years now. You know, I've never heard say, "I'm going to bring those wretches to a wretched end."
No,
I've never seen that.
You have a lot of turns of phrase, and that's not one that I've ever heard you say.
Nope, never said that. And he will rent the vineyard. I've never heard, by the way, God say, "I'm going to rent anything."
No.
You ever heard God say, "I want to rent something"?
No.
No, I mean, how stupid do you have to be to think that these are the words of God? Did you ever read the front of the book? Is your God dyslexic?
Apparently.
And he will rent the vineyard to other tenants. Oh boy, got every replacement theology. Those Jews, they conspired to kill him. So what's God's going to do? I'm going to rent the vineyard to other tenants. I'm going to rent Israel to Goyim because the Jews, well, they killed my son. Well, by the way, he wasn't my son. And by the way, they didn't kill him. It was Rome.
They didn't kill him.
And by the way, if they had killed him, it'd be a really good thing because he came to be the Passover lamb. And last time I checked, the Passover lamb always dies. That is the purpose of being the Passover lamb. But forget about being reasonable here. God's saying, because they did the right thing, well, they actually didn't do it. It was the Romans that did it. I'm going to rent the vineyard to the Romans. Oh, yeah, it was the Romans that came in and destroyed my home and plundered it and took away my people to build that disgusting edifice called the Roman Colosseum. But I'm going to rent Israel to them. It's the same thing. I'm going to rent it to those Romans who would come back and kill the Israelites by the hundreds of thousands. I'm going to rent to those same Romans every copy of the Torah they found. They would wrap it around one of my people and burn them alive in it. That's the people I think I want to rent the vineyard to. Why not? I'm going to rent the vineyard to the very nation that I said was the most vicious beast of all time. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, right? That's who I'm going to rent the vineyard to. I'm going to rent it to the Romans. Oh, by the way, it was the Romans that killed him. How does this story stand up when the new tenant are the very people that actually killed the body of Yosha? They didn't stone him. He was crucified. Crucifixion was a Roman means of torture. You ever read about the story of Spartacus?
Oh, yes. A lot of crucifixion.
100 feet apart, 1,000, or I think it was 6,000 of Spartacus's followers were all crucified on the way into Rome. I think it was 6,000 of them, every 100 feet. Yeah, Rome. They're the ones that killed him. And so I want to give the other tenants, well, they happen to be the ones that actually killed him. But don't confuse me with the facts. He'll bring those wretches to a wretched end, they replied. Oh, by the way, does God, I just want to say, because this is supposed to be Jesus, and he's saying, what's going to happen with these wretches? And Jesus lets the unnamed audience respond. Do you find any place where you're reading Moshe, and Moshe says, all right, I'm going to ask you a question here, and you guys give me the answer, unless the question is, no, actually, he doesn't even ask the question. And there's no answer. The only answers, where do you say it, and the people said, we will trust and rely on Yahweh, is that Yahweh said, Moshe said, this is what Yahweh said to us. And after they listened, they said, yeah, we understand. That's what he said. We heard him too, and we're going to trust and rely on Yahweh. But is there any place where Moshe is sitting there telling a story and said, hey, guys, help me out with this story here? There were a bunch of wretches, and they acted like wretches. And can you tell me what God's going to do to these wretches? Because I'm really looking for a participatory answer here. Because I may be the prophet, but we need to make this a dialogue. You ever read any of that in Debatim? No. How about in Dowd's Psalms? Do you find a place in Dowd's Psalms where he's saying, okay, let's make this a chorus. I'll ask the question. I'll make a statement, and you chime in.
I don't think Dowd needs any help.
He will bring those to a wretched end, they replied. To his question, what will he do with those tenants? And he will rent the vineyard to other tenants who will give them his share of the crop at the harvest time. So it's not Jesus that's saying that. That's being put in the mouth of, well, who is there? He's not talking to Jews at this point, because the Jews were the wretches. So who is he talking about? There were Jews and there were Romans.
Yeah.
So it's the Romans that are saying, that he's going to bring those wretches to a wretched end, and he's going to rent the vineyard to other tenants who will give him his share of the crop at harvest time. Is God looking for a share of the crop?
No.
Jesus said to them, have you ever read in the scriptures, the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this, and it is marvelous in our eyes. Now, not a word of this is found in the 3rd century P104. It's so awkward. It's so readily transparent with Jesus asking whoever it is in their audience to complete his parable, only to offer an incongruent citation. Have you ever read in the scriptures, the stone of the builders rejected has become the cornerstone? What does that have to do with harvesting fruit and killing a landowner's son? It's just completely incongruous. I might as well say that red birds eat blue fruit. You ever read about that?
Afraid not.
I mean, why not just say, that
just any off-cuff
wagon wheels are round and they roll on the ground.
Okay.
I mean, why not just say one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish? I mean, Jesus said to them, have you ever read in the scriptures? Well, first of all, why would he ask them if they had read in it? Because he's obviously not speaking to Jews, so they obviously hadn't read in it.
No.
That the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. He is using a horticultural metaphor. If God's going to tell a story that's based upon gardens and harvesting and those who do the harvest, why is he going to switch to builders? I mean, come on. Man is dumb enough to do that. You think God is?
Well, why does no one ever? Why do people never challenge these things?
You know, I wonder too. And I guess when I was a Christian back a long, long, long time ago, and I'm not embarrassed to say anymore because I've read, I've thought about why was it that Yahowah picked a 80-year-old broken down shepherd who stuttered to bring his people out of Israel, out of Egypt, and then give them the Torah. Well, the answer is obvious. He was the only person on the planet that God didn't have to explain all the shit that was horrible in Egypt. He already knew the religion was a lie. He already knew the politics was disgusting. He already knew that the slave economy was revolting. He already knew that the military, the way they used the military, was evil. God didn't have to waste any time with him, enlightening him as to what's wrong with Egypt. He already knew it. So God could spend all of his time on what God enjoys, which is teaching Moshe the truth, because he already knew everything he needed to know about Egypt. That's why he picked him. That was the one thing that Moshe was unique on. That's why he picked an 80-year-old broken down shepherd who stuttered.
Yeah, no question.
Really important to recognize this sort of thing. So you got this story where the audience has given a completely incongruent citation, and it's obviously a Christian interpolation. I mean, think about it. Why would Yosha ask those who were not to be trusted to convey something which is now endorsed as trustworthy? Can you name another parable? Because the mashal are parables, which Yosha asked his audience, or which Dowd, when he's writing those, said, "Can you? Let's just have a group thing here. I'll ask you, you just throw it in. We'll create this story together. We'll all pretend like we're prophets. We're going to make this participatory. Oh God, I want to pray to you. I'll pray to you without ceasing. God doesn't want us to yibber yabber to him. Listen to him.
Shamar Torah, I think is what he said.
Yeah. So, why is it that no one figured this out? Because there hasn't been a Moshe in a very long time.
Well, I think it's probably people like JB who read it and they say, this is stupid, and just walk away. You know, and the others, I don't know why we were brain dead for so long. We were hoping there was a thread of something in Christianity.
We were, and that's why I'm saying I'm no longer embarrassed that I was once a Christian, because I realized that one of the reasons that, I mean, there were a lot of reasons that I got asked to do this job, and the number one reason is the people who were really qualified that God wanted to work with, they didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't a single Yehudim or Yisraelite that answered the call, not in 3,000 years. Not one. Well, not completely true. You go through Malachi, so there were a handful over the first 500 years after Dowd. But for the last 2,500 years, there wasn't one. So, you know, so we're in this place by default. And then, you know, this is not bragging here, because keep in mind that Moshe was a broken down, failed shepherd who was a stutterer. So it ain't exactly like God is trying to pick the best of the and the brightest, okay? Yeah. So, okay, so you can't get egotistical here, because that's what he likes to do. Is, you know, even with Dowd, you know, Dowd wasn't that, you know, Dowd said he picked me, but I wasn't that tall. He wasn't that handsome. You know, my brother, he was tall and handsome. He had it all going for. Even Shamuel said, "Oh, God's going to pick this one. He's impressive." No, that's it. Pick the puniest,
Pick the little boy out
Go there, pick Dowd. He's the kid. You know, and it wasn't just the youngest. It's just the puniest, the least
the least among us.
The least among. So God likes to work with the least among us. So you only qualify if you got really nothing going for you.
You may want to revise.
But
your
that's
resume.
okay. I mean, I don't mind being a dirty, dented, dull tool being used. It's still a cool job, just because the really cool kids didn't want the job. Yeah, we're here. But so that's the reason why I'm no longer embarrassed that I was a Christian, because it was a pre-qualifier. That way, God didn't have to spend any time telling me what's wrong with Christianity. I already knew. And by the way, the fact I was once political, God didn't have to explain to me why politics is garbage. And the one thing I didn't know is Islam. So guess where we started?
It's
been 3 years. You're going to learn this. And by the way, once you've learned it, and I'm going to protect you here. I made a deal. I'm going to protect you. I'm going to work with you. We're going to do this together. But other than you developing a comfort level with how we work together and how I'm protecting you, how I'm inspiring you, how I'm going to work with you, the bottom line is here that we're not going to translate my testimony until you're already through this Islam thing, because you need to know that too. And I don't want to have to. I don't really want to have to go into that with you. I'd rather teach you the fun stuff. And so that was a qualification. You got to know it.
Good.
Have the great blessing to be engaged to a Yahud. And as a Yahud and a member of the covenant, she has no interest in politics. And her only interest in religion is understanding how particularly Christianity has been so abusive to Jews. And she sees me reading articles on religion and politics all the time. She says, I don't even want to know about that. I said, but you got to know about it. I'm going to read about the politics of Israel. I'm going to read about the politics of America, because it's important to be able to expose and condemn them. It's important to understand how they're going to affect Yahweh's people so we can warn Yahweh's people. It's important for us to be aware of these things and to effectively speak out against them. So I make no apologies for the fact that I once was stupid. I mean, I'm not all that smart now, but at least I understand who Yahweh is, what He's offering and expecting in return, and
that's a handful there.
More than good enough. So the fact is that with P104 in the late 2nd century, jumping from with the Gospel of Matthew 21:37 to what is now classified as Matthew 21:43 and 44, we find, therefore I tell you that the kingdom of God, by the way, the kingdom of God, kingdom of Dowd. Let's just be real. The kingdom of Dowd. But Yahweh always refers to the kingdom as the kingdom of Dowd. The kingdom of Dowd is going to exist in Shamaim and the spiritual realm in heaven forever. Man, if you don't like Dowd, you're not going to want to go there.
That's a good point.
Dude is in charge. This is God's son. He created the universe for Dowd. We're just lucky to be able to come along and join in.
Playing.
I mean, if you don't like Dowd, you ain't going to like heaven. You're going to be miserable there. So it's not the kingdom of God, the kingdom of Dowd. So I'm going to tell you, God didn't inspire that, because when God talks about kingdoms, the kingdom of Dowd. Therefore, I will tell you, the kingdom of God will be taken away from you. He's not talking to Jews.
People.
And given to people who will produce its fruit. Oh, must be those Romans.
Yeah, boy.
Who became the Roman Catholics.
We're going to get into them in a few pages.
Yeah, the last two beasts. the one that treads upon the whole world and the one that is so vicious. Anyone who falls on this stone will be broken to pieces. Anyone who falls on it will be crushed. So what he's saying here is not only am I taking it from those dastardly Jews because they killed my son, but I'm giving it to the Roman Catholic Church. And anybody that challenges the Roman Catholic Church is going to be broken to pieces. They're going to be crushed. So who is it that has to be crushed and broken to pieces? The Jews. Now, when Yahweh's coming back, who's he coming back for?
He's coming back for Yehuda and Israel.
So I guess he's not really interested in crushing to pieces, is he?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. No. Every end times prophecy, every single one of them has Yahweh returning to and for Yisrael and Yehuda without exception. And there are hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of them.
You know, I've resolved today, not to interrupt, I'm sorry if you're about to say something, I'm sorry. I've kind of resolved myself today that you because coming out of a Christian frame, not that it lingers anything anymore, it really doesn't. It's rejected easily and completely at this point, but when you have relatives and things and people you wish they would understand what we've learned and make a choice. However, you said a long time ago that, your main objective here was to call out Israel and get them out of Babylon, which is the U.S., and Europe, of course, but U.S. in particular, and get them back to Israel. And the focus being that, and I've kind of resolved that really, really, really is it. I am more excited when I can talk to someone who is Yehudim and share what I do, and they really actually give you a voice and or a conversation and a dialogue, and is someone they know. And they know that you know something when you're sharing these things because they're extremely interested in it. At least the people that I'm friends with who happen to be Yehudim, and get an opportunity to talk to them about this. And it's it really is what we're doing. I mean, I'm so sad about the Christians, but I can't take them much anymore. I'm just assuming, what the hell do you want? Now, when you present this material, and let me just say this.
And by the way, I don't expose and speak about Christianity because I'm trying to save Christians. I'm not, and I don't expose and condemn rabbinic Judaism because I'm trying to save rabbis because I'm not. God can't save them. He doesn't want to save them. I'm not interested in saving them. Fortunately, 80% of Jews today are secular. They're atheists and agnostics, but they're reasonable, rational people. Those are the people that God is calling home. They're the ones that we do this for. And there are lots of, as we've read the prophecies about the Nakri, there's lots of Goyim who have left, whether it be Roman Catholicism or some form of Christianity, or they used to be agnostics or atheists, and they've come to listen to what Yahweh had to say, and they like him, and they've accepted what he is offering, and are willing to embrace what he is requesting of us. And so there's a lot of Goyim that are going to benefit along the way as well, but we are exposing and condemning religion because of its negative influence on society. We're not trying to save the religious. God is not interested in saving them. We're not interested in saving them. The lady that came to your door, I would make no attempt to try to save. If somebody's going to say stupid stuff at my home, I'm going to refute them.
Yes,
which is what you did.
I told her. I said, "You're in my house. Yeah, you're in my house.
You're in my house. I'm going to refute you."
I said, "Your house. I'll just walk away." I have no problem.
Yeah, your house. You say something stupid, I'm going to walk away. You're in my house and saying something stupid. My house is Yahweh's house.
Attack Yahweh in my house.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That was the thrust of the conversation at the end. I mean, that's why. So she left. So she left, and anyway. But no, it was a good gut check for me today. I mean, it got me very focused on what's important and what's just walk away from this stuff. These people, just keep your focus where you should be. Oh,
correct.
As I was driving up down the highway going to San Francisco, I've been listening to what's the singer? Oh, the Yahoo singer. Oh my goodness, Neil Diamond.
Okay.
We got to get him to rewrite instead of coming to America.
Yes.
They're coming to Jerusalem.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great?
There's 6 degrees of separation. For you, there's probably only 2 degrees. Somebody, Jerry or somebody, knows this guy. We got to get him to rewrite that for the Exodus.
Yeah, I don't think he can sing anymore. I think he had a voice problem. Yeah, I don't think he can sing anymore. Yeah, I don't think he's. I've actually gone to a couple of Neil Diamond concerts. The last time I saw him was in the Greek Theater, and he is really a tremendous entertainer. I enjoy that kind of music, and I enjoy his songs. And yes, I know that Coming to America is political, and I'm not political, and so it bothers me too. But I don't allow every little thing to get.
Oh no, you can still enjoy.
I mean, so I listen to his music, and I'm an old fogey when it comes to music. Like I happen to like John Denver's songs. I like Jim Croce's songs. The ballads that Elvis Presley sung, I like. I love the harmony of the Righteous Brothers. I mean, I'm into into
really
songs.
Old school like me.
Oh yeah, I mean even some of the Beatles. Some of their ballads I think are beautiful. Yesterday I think is a really beautiful, well composed song. But I like the great songs of musicals. Like The Sound of Music and the whole host of songs that come out of it. I think she's an absolute nitwit, but Barbra Streisand's voice, I think, is spectacular. I listen to her songs.
That's a real voice, yeah.
Yeah, it's a real spectacular voice. So I like I like ballads. That's the kind of stuff that I enjoy the most, and everybody's got their thing. When I read the words of Dowd. I know I'm not envisioning the beauty of the music. I'm looking forward to hearing it someday, but they remind me of ballads in the sense that they tell a story.
Yes, they do.
It's words that tell a story, and that's the kind of music I like. I think it's uplifting and inspiring, and Dowd's lyrics tell a story.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, and I like the story.
Absolutely.
I like the story.
All right.
All right, my friend. I hope we get good news on paint. Of course, I'm really, really hoping you have wonderful news on Terry. I hope she is listening. We love her. We're hoping for the best. Sorry, it's been such a hard 120 days, and it is long past time that she starts getting better, right?
Indeed. Yes.
Gosh. All right. And one of the things, though, that you all have learned, too, is that the timing works so beautifully, where so many had the opportunity, while I still had the home down there in Florida, to come together, and you got to know, like, I know you talk to Dr. Jeff all the time, and how wonderful he has been in terms of supportive and offering medical insights and just being there, and that was an opportunity to spend time with him, and I know how close Terry and Jackie have become because of all of this, and you and Leah, and so it's and as well as Dee is another that you had the opportunity, and Terry had the opportunity to get to know, and so you. I think you've gotten the support that there's a lot of support and love out there, and the covenant is a genuine family, and we are rallying around one another, and so I'm glad that is the case, and we wish you and Terry all of the best. And we've been really careful here, and I think you know it extremely well, because we every week we exchange 2 or 3 really long and often gut-wrenching letters. Is that Yahweh does not make any promises to us as it relates to our physical bodies here. No. We're all mortal. We're all going to die.
Absolutely.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, one of the great promises is to be liberated from these deteriorating physical bodies. So we're not looking forward to a resurrection of the physical body. We're looking for it to be gone, and the physical body being done. I am sure that Terry is going to be thrilled when this body that is betraying her now and that is not working in her favor is no longer a burden to her, where there is no pain, there's no limitations, and she is free of all of it. And so God's not promising to perfect our physical bodies. He's promising to perfect our souls, so that our souls can endure with Him in 7 dimensions and have all of this enrichment and enlightenment and empowerment. And so you notice we're not praying for healing. That's not what Yahweh is about. It's not about physical healing. I mean, all these physical miracles, that's utter nonsense. That's not what God is about. We should not care about that. What we want is our souls healed. We want our souls restored. And being part of the covenant and observing the Mikra is what causes that to occur. And we know that Terry has responded to the terms and conditions of the covenant, and to she's attended Yahweh's invitation. So we understand that there is the possibility that she may get to enjoy the freedom of being enriched and empowered and in Yah's presence before the rest of us get there. But it's like a blink of an eye in eternity. And if that happens, good for her. And if it doesn't happen, good for us. We get to enjoy her longer. If it doesn't happen, if it happens sooner, then she gets to be free of all of this pain and immediately enjoy forever, and can do some exploring. So she's ready to be our tour guide when we get there. So we're taking. You don't hear us saying things that the religious would say here.
No,
because
I got a dose today.
There are some promises that Yah makes here in this world, and if you're about His business, then He's going to protect us. That doesn't mean He's going to make us perfectly healthy with no pain or no frustration. As a matter of fact, I've gone through quite an ordeal with my ex and some of the poison that she has caused. For example, she's falsely accused me of something even this evening, literally as the show was beginning.
Really?
And one of the advantages of that, and there's really an advantage of it, is that I get to empathize with Yahweh. Why did Yahweh ask Hoshe to go marry a temple prostitute? So he would understand what it feels like when the people that you love are unfaithful, when they manufacture all sorts of lies and project all sorts of horrible things on you. And so that's why he did it. And so we have to feel pain. We to appreciate what we're being offered. We have to feel fractures and the issues associated with divorce and separation and all of that sort of thing, because it does equip us to empathize. And it's important that we understand Yahweh's feelings and his thinking and his judgment in this regard. So there are reasons that we endure these things. And if God were to say, okay, if you're covenant, if you make it part of my family, everything's going to be perfect for you. You're going to have the world's best job. You're going to have more money than you know what to do with. You're going to have perfect health. You're going to live forever. Everything is going to be perfect. Well, at that point, he's bribing you.
Where do you grow from? Where do you grow from there?
Yeah, and at that point, you're not in a genuine choice to be covenant or not covenant, to answer his invitations or not. I mean, there's no free will in any of that, and no, it's not what he's promising.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, he even said, "Listen, I'm going to tell you that this is the longest people are going to live." And he said it was 120 years. He said that's it, and 70 is going to be the average. That's what he said.
Yeah,
that's what happens. Our bodies deteriorate, and that's a good thing because we're going to be liberated from them. And I'm telling you, when Dowd comes back, it isn't a bodily resurrection. Dude's coming back as brilliant as the sun. He's going to be like God in our presence. And you know why? Because that's what God is going to do to all of us. He's going to make us like him.
Well, that was what he said.
Yeah, that's what he said. That's what he's going to do. And he's telling us that's what's going to happen with Dowd. He's going to come back as light, as brilliant as the sun.
What a great
Yahweh was a whole lot more brilliant than the sun. And so when we become more like him, we become more brilliant than the sun. That's just the reality of it. And so anyway, for our sake, we hope that the surgery next week goes well, and that we get to enjoy her company here for a lot longer. And for her sake, we just hope that she's out of pain and that she gets to enjoy what she has been promised. So we'll wait and see how it all pans out in the end. But we love her and we appreciate you being part of this. And we're even hoping that Paint gets a reprieve and that the biopsy from Paint comes back white, not black.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for those kind words. We appreciate you.
All right. Well, I'm not sure they were kind words, but they really summarize what we've been talking about privately and our long emails each week. Is that this is being part of the covenant. We're going to respond the way that Yahweh responds. We're going to look at it from his perspective, and that's a lot. We have to be really careful that we don't slip into. Because it feels better to step into the religious mindset, because that's not what God is offering us. And the covenant is an eternal family, and it's a family where its benefits are to be enriched and empowered and magnified. It's essentially to go from 3 dimensions to 7 dimensions, which is just almost mind-numbing. It's so extraordinary.
That's something we just have to experience. That's way beyond my comprehension. But
I can think about it. I can be excited about it. There's lots of dimensionality to it. But we're at this point, all we can do is project, and we'll do it. Anyway, good night. Always a pleasure. We'll look forward to being with you this time next week. May God bless you all.
Me too.
Happy Shabbat.
Good. Bye. Good night. Shabbat shalom.